Artificial cranial deformation, mimicry. As I've said in some of my previous videos and writings, artificial cranial deformation was very common all over the world. The Smithsonian papers I have cited before said it was so common. It was the only place that didn't seem to have it was in Australia. Now, it is my theory, and not only just my theory, but backed up by several articles, that the practice was done as to show a social status. Now, as I've already said before, there have been some skulls found in mounds in California, New Mexico, and Illinois that exhibit symptoms of acromegaly and possibly gigantism, and they go over 4,000 years ago. I'm sure there's quite a bit more evidence that's been hidden or lost. And it is my theory that this artificial cranial deformation was a form of mimicry of giants who had acromegaly. There is a distinct shape to the face when a person has acromegaly. It increases the thickness and size of the skull, and also tends to make it slant back. In the article here, it cites that during the classic period, evidence shows the skull deformation was characterized by a distinct social pattern. The high-ranking Mayan families differentiated themselves from the lower classes with their head shape. So the whole head binding process was to show social status, and it was usually the royal or high-ranking people that did it. Now, to test out some of my theories, I took a trip out to Pennsylvania and visited the Mutter Museum and talked to a very knowledgeable person by the name of Anna Doty. And she's in charge of the Mutter Museum, and she actually, interestingly enough, came to a very similar conclusion that this artificial cranial deformation was a form of mimicry. And I was also, I also went out to the Pennsylvania Museum and took a look at what they had there, but unfortunately I wasn't able to meet with Dr. Janet Monge to look at some of the specimens they had. I had an issue with my schedule and things didn't work out, but fortunately when I did talk to Anna, we had talked about some of my theories and my notes and articles and what she had in the Mutter Museum, and she actually wrote a paper entitled Artificial Cranial Deformation Methods, History, and Origins of a Cross-Cultural Phenomenon when she was working on her education. And it was a very interesting paper, and she had worked with Dr. Janet Monge of the Pennsylvania Museum of Archaeology and Anthropology, looking at several specimens of these artificially deformed crania out of South America. And she also cited, as I've talked about before, the Smithsonian papers and the theory that they were trying to emulate or mimic Pharaoh Akhenaten. But the issue is, that might be fine if you're out near Egypt, but unless you're willing to admit there was extensive travel, it doesn't explain why the practice was being done all over the Americas and the rest of the world. And I definitely think there was extensive travel, but I believe there's more to it, and I believe it is a mimicry of these ancient giants who became their gods and leaders. Now, she cites in her paper that she looked at several different specimens. Now, Anna states in her paper that she analyzed 42 crania from various sites in Peru and Bolivia. And out of the 42 crania that she studied, only 4 appear to have little or no type of artificial deformation. So she also further goes into some theories about congenital deformities, craniosynostosis, which could be a premature fusing of the cranial sutures. Um, there's quite a bit of different things that can affect the sutures of a skull. And if you go on Wikipedia, they can show you a diagram of that. And there's different syndromes as well, and that could cause abnormalities. And today there's people that are born with skull issues, and they have to have artificial cranial deformation to fix it. Usually it involves wearing some sort of a helmet or an apparatus. So I don't buy into this alien theory with those skulls. They're human. What I was told is they can tell that they're normal skulls due to the thickness of the bone, and it was normal. If you have a person with gigantism or acromegaly, that thickness is going to be quite a bit more, and that wasn't shown. But they would use boards or rocks, and when a baby's born, the sutures generally aren't fused, so they can pretty much move things as it grows. But the whole thing to me is, why were they doing it? And as I said, I believe it was a form of mimicry of their royal bloodlines that came from these giants with acromegaly and gigantism. And they even, say in the anthropological record, it was done to distinguish, royal class from the average person. So that all makes sense. I just want to say one last thing. There's definitely some archaeological proof for these giants. They've already, wrote articles about the skulls found in California, Illinois, and New Mexico. And I've already showed you in previous videos, the Smithsonian talked about it. In those burial mounds, they also had the little people. They found the skeletons of dwarfs. And I'm going to talk about that in a separate video. So there was different people buried in those mounds, and it seems to me those with the higher height were the rulers, and they had evidence of gigantism and acromegaly. Now, and as I said, that would make their skulls different. So I'm going to put up this picture of this guy who was a wrestler called the French Angel. You can take a look at him and see how his face is similar to some of those Peruvian elongated skulls. The guy's name was Maurice Tillet, and he was a French wrestler, and he ended up getting acromegaly in his adulthood. So he was pretty normal, and then all of a sudden it came on, and he didn't get the height because his bones had already fused. But what happens is when they get the acromegaly in adulthood is the bones that can grow, like in the face and the hands, tend to get enlarged. By the way, that's usually caused by a tumor, a benign tumor in the pituitary gland. Nowadays, they have some medical methods to help people with that issue. Now, I want to make some comments here about this little gray alien meme. This seems to be being pushed quite a bit along with this reptilian alien meme. Now this one's the more intelligent one, under the ground and interested in your reproductive parts. And the other dragon one's more interested, allegedly, in eating you. I mean, look at the Ridley Scott, Alien series and what all of that was about. I'm not buying into this meme, and it's pushed quite a bit. My current research and the archaeological evidence currently indicates that these were humans that had gigantism and acromegaly, and they had hair. I specifically repeat that Prometheus was very well known for his red hair. So, and Zeus would be more auburn hair, and Hera would be golden hair. Demeter was said to have been wheaten haired. It's like a dirty blonde type, um, golden wheat color. So, at the minimum of at this Chronide time period, what I am seeing in the ancient texts and the archaeological evidence is a race of giants that were human. But some of them had not, nasty ways, and the others tried to stop them. And there is evidence for the little people. I'm going to get into that into some other videos. I mean, look around today. But I'm not, until I start to see some hard evidence in this literature about this meme that seems to have come up during World War II and involves Aleister Crowley, which was, he was an agent. I'm working on researching him, but he was an agent for the, British government, and he was doing various things all over the world. And I kind of wonder if this is a cover or a genetic experiment or something from long ago. I'm not fully buying into this until I start to see some solid evidence that these things aren't creations or covers and used to eliminate where the guilt that certain people need to face up to for things that they've lied about and are doing to the human race. So that's it. That's my research right now on artificial cranial deformation. My conclusion is that it's a form of mimicry of ancient giants whose skulls were different due to their condition, and it was practiced by the elite of various civilizations to distinguish themselves from the common person. That's it. Thank you.